supporters and patriots abroad in North America, Europe, the Caribbean, who join us this morning. This morning, we have some very important matters to raise, and I'm joined this morning by the Chief Whip, the Member of Parliament for Pointe-a-Pierre, our Shadow Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, the Honorable Dr. David Lee, who will speak first on several matters pertinent to that sector and other related issues and some of the burning issues of current affairs that faces the country at this time. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Dr. Lee, and later in the proceedings, I would speak on some matters involving infrastructure and national security. So, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Munilal, and good morning to the viewers and listeners out there in the world, in the social media. It's always a pleasure to be part of a press conference with Dr. Munilal. We always tend to listen and wait for whatever details and information that Dr. Munilal will put out later in this morning's press conference. So let me start and get into my presentation here this morning. A few weeks before Budget 2024 will be read by the Minister of Finance in our Parliament. And Dr. Munilal, I predict that could be on the 2nd of October. This is the first Monday in October, is my prediction for Budget Day. It is clear that our economy and country has no more energy to provide economic stability and prosperity for our citizens due to the reckless management of our national energy sector by Stuart Young and Prime Minister Keith Rowley. From the Paria tragedy to the Nikon catastrophe, along with the persistent decay of the viability of our energy sector, our national economy is in a state of peril. This week, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and more so the families of the 4 divers who lost their lives in the Paria pipeline, were supposed to have some form of closure with the publication of the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the Paria tragedy. Today, I can surely say that an entire nation is thoroughly disheartened, disappointed, and deeply concerned that for a second time, this report has been delayed. This morning, we in the opposition say this is unacceptable. Over 550 days ago, approximately 25th of February 2022, our nation witnessed one of the worst national tragedies, one which took the lives of 4 citizens in the pipeline of state-owned Paria Limited. It is unacceptable that justice or even the path to justice has not been delivered for these families. This morning, we put the question to the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, Mr. Jerome Lynch, King's Counsel. Is it that Paria is paralyzing the Commission of Inquiry through delays in an effort to hide the truth? We are not questioning, the opposition is not questioning the competence of the chairman and his commission. As a matter of fact, we commend the professionalism and dedicated manner in which the chairman of the Paria Commission of Inquiry, King's Counsel Jerome Lynch, and his team executed during the commission. But today we are calling on him to give clarity to the people of this nation. The people of Trinidad and Tobago and the broken families need to know the real cause of this delay. When Mr. Lynch and his team host their public press conference, Dr. Munilal, and I saw we read in the newspaper on this coming Wednesday, we are calling on Mr. Lynch to tell the nation if Paria Limited or any other arms of the state are frustrating the process. Is it that certain elements of the state are complicating the process for Mr. Lynch and his team? We ask. Mr. Lynch has been telling the country that there are certain legal processes that must be adhered to, and we respect that. However, given the history of both the government and Paria's behavior towards this commission, we have to ask, are they the ones frustrating the process? We ask these questions because the history surrounding this strategy clearly shows that those in authority have attempted to derail the truth in this strategy being exposed. It was this government that attempted to appoint a biased committee to investigate this tragedy before we in the opposition exposed them. It was this government that suffered the commission initially for stationery and the elements needed to point Mr. Lynch himself had to speak out. I want the country to remember that from the very start, Paria attempted to frustrate the Commission of Inquiry by not presenting witness statements at the start of the Commission of Inquiry, causing the chairman to say this may have negative effects on this commission. And I quote Mr. Lynch, "Many have engaged with that process, some have not. I cannot compel them to do so, and consequently, they will need to be asked questions here from that witness box, perhaps taking more time than we had hoped." And I go on, "It means that there are delays that are likely to occur as a result of having to take that evidence afresh from the witness box. Regrettably, Paria Heritage has chosen not to assist in that way, and there are a considerable number of witnesses we need to ask questions. So that means it will take a little longer than we had planned." So that is the history, Dr. Munilal, of what has transpired with this Commission of Inquiry in the investigation. So given this history by both the government and Paria, we ask, is Paria or the state now frustrating the process? Is it that Paria has sought to use the process of Salmon letters being issued to delay the report from being compiled? Has Paria met the deadlines for responding to these Salmon letters? Does Paria have outstanding information and are purposefully delaying it? We in the opposition cannot and will not cross the line to impact Mr. Lynch's job, which he has done diligently so far. But we plead with him to be vigilant against a government and a state entity which from day one has been keen on hiding the truth. We want to respectfully remind the Commission Chairman of his comments in January 2023, when he committed to have the report ready by Easter this year. Therefore, this is not simply a delay in a report, but is a delay in getting closure, answers, and honesty for the families who have lost their loved ones. And I must want to add, Dr. Munilal, that we were supposed to have gotten a report in Easter. It was pushed back to August this year, and now it's been further delayed, I think in November this year, that we are hoping to get a finalization of this report. So this is not a simply delay in a report, but delay in getting answers if individuals and practices at Paria were instrumental in this tragedy. The longer we take without answers, the longer we endanger others within the energy industry. Now, Dr. Munilal, I have some information, and I asked the Minister of Energy. An incident happened at berth 6 yesterday afternoon, where a barge was doing some work on berth 6, and it flipped over. In other words, it capsized with a high-up on it. And, you know, luckily no one was injured, no lives were lost. But it clearly shows that whether or not the safety measures were in place, or that particular barge that was contracted to do the work, if they were equipped or certified to do the necessary work at the Paria berth yesterday. So again, there's another incident that happened. We don't know how many more incidences that would have happened previously in the past, and that is why it is so critical to understand from the Paria report, from Commissioner Lynch's report, from the, so that safety issues can be taken at Paria. The government and this Minister of Energy never had the interests of these families at heart, Dr. Munilal, because this is the same government that left these families in the rain in the Paria car park during the worst moments of their lives. And you would remember, Dr. Munilal, you and I were there visiting the families, and we assisted, and you assisted them with lunches on certain days while they were kept, waiting to see if their loved ones would have been recovered. While we seek justice, answers and accountability for the 4 lives lost at Paria, we in the opposition also demand answers from Nikon on what really transpired on June 15, 2023, leading to the death of one Mr. Alan Lane Ramkisoon. Nikon, as again is in the newspapers today, Dr. Munilal, and I just want to show in one of the daily newspapers, Nikon appeals judgment denying its gas. Okay, so again, Nikon is once again making the news, Dr. Munilal. Nikon can give as much excuses as they want. They are not above the law, and today we are calling on Nikon to prove to the country they are safe to operate. Because in one of the media reports that was earlier this week, Doctor, on August 26th, the headline is Nikon plant fully operational again. And we have the opposition have a lot of questions to ask on this Nikon plant. So 5 days ago, as I just showed you, Nikon informed the media that if gas supply becomes available, they will be operational. They told the media that it has completed its root cause analysis and implemented recommendations from the OSHA and the Ministry of Energy. So what they are saying, Dr. Mullah, is that they have gotten the clearance from after these disasters and the lack of the report being shown to being brought to Parliament. You remember back in April 2022, they had a major blast at Nikon plant that shut down and it really rocked the communities, fence line communities of Marabella and environs, Dr. Mullah. And then again, this year, on June 15th, we had a death at this Nikon plant in one Mr. Alan Lane, Ramkisoon. And they are telling the population that they are open for business because they have now finalized and completed the root cause analysis. And we are yet to see this report, Dr. Munilal. We as an opposition have called time and time again. I have called in Parliament for the reports to be laid. If they didn't want to lay it in Parliament, at least lay it in the Joint Select Committee for Energy so that we can get to the bottom and understand the root cause of these disasters that happened at the Nikon. So again, we are asking once again the Minister of Energy, why has a report of the root cause analysis not been public or even presented to Parliament? Today, the opposition again is asking what caused the loss of the life on June 15th for Mr. Ramkisoon. Today, we are calling on Minister Young, if you value the safety of every Nikon worker and the fence line residents of Marabella, tell the country or even submit to the JSC and Energy for Parliament for proper scrutiny. Because we would like to understand the root cause analysis, that, what caused this tragedy, what were the recommendations from OSHA and the Ministry of Energy, and confirm to us how Nikon has satisfied all these recommendations. I want to add something, Dr. Munila, and I want to ask, because when this plant, Nikon, was fully operational, opened in March 2021, and you would have seen in this picture here, we had the Prime Minister officially opening this Nikon plant in March 2021 with the then late Minister of Energy, Franklin Kahn. We had one, Miss Alison Lewis is in this picture. We have your I wouldn't say your colleague, but you well know him, Mr. Ainsley Gill, all right, who is the managing director or president of Nikon, and one Mr. Ian Gold, who is also, I think, a director on this board. All right, so this plant was opened in March 2021 with the Prime Minister with a lot of fanfare. And I'm asking the question to you, Dr. Munilal, and I'm asking to the population, is the government love affair with Nikon gone sour? Because what we have seen this week, Nikon indicated that they would be filing an appeal against a state-owned company called Upstream Downstream Gas Company for the resumption of their gas supply. Today we are calling the Prime Minister to tell us, is the government love affair with Nikon gone sour? Is this the same Nikon that the Prime Minister boasted about during its opening in March 2021? And I quote the Prime Minister, the government was proud to facilitate its development. Is this the same Nikon that the Prime Minister said was an opportunity for the country to gain benefit? Prime Minister Rowley and Nikon have made a mockery of taxpayers since July 2018. This government gave Nikon the World GTL plant, which was built by taxpayers at a cost of $2 billion for a peppercorn rate. And that was the Malcolm Jones fiasco, Dr. Munilal. Then they guaranteed the taxpayers money will be used to buy all of the products produced by Nikon, a take or pay situation. Then they guaranteed Nikon to secure a supply of gas from the company that this government created called Trinidad and Tobago Upstream and Downstream Company Limited. Right? Now with Nikon suing, Nikon is now suing this company, and it is our taxpayers' dollars that be used for legal fees to defend this matter in court. So the issue with Nikon, Dr. Munilal, Nikon was given preferential treatment. It's like a love affair. Back in March 2021, they set up a company called Upstream Downstream so that they can get us a regular supply of gas. Gas is so crucial to the country. The Point Lisas Industrial Estate is getting a regular supply of gas. But Nikon was issued, and it went to cabinet, and it was agreed that they would get a regular supply of gas to operate Nikon Limited from the minister's share of gas. So there is a love affair that took place. And now that you see the love affair is now breaking up, and Nikon is now suing the government through the Trinidad Upstream Downstream Company to ensure that they get a regular supply of gas. So something is not right with this deal, this sweetheart deal that was created by this government and Nikon. Now Nikon, Dr. Munilal, is owing this company called, the state company called Upstream Downstream, over 21 million US dollars. That's approximately 147 million TT dollars that they are owing the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Right? And the government of Trinidad and Tobago, through this Upstream Downstream Limited, is owing our national gas company. So what Nikon has done, they has really brought a debt burden to the country, because they are getting a regular supply of gas. They're not paying for it. They're running up a bill up to the tune of over 21 million US, and the government is taking gas from National Gas Company to supply Upstream Downstream, who will then supply Nikon. So there's you can see the love affair if you connect the dots, Dr. Munilal. And now, to make it worse, Nikon is now suing the government to ensure that they get a regular supply of gas. And what will then happen, based on the terms of the contract, they will then have to go to arbitration and try to sort out this thing at arbitration. And you understand, if you remember, Dr. Munilal, that the whole AV drilling issue went to arbitration. And AV drilling, it's there in the public records, won at the arbitration. And we as the taxpayers had to absorb and pay AV drilling whatever was discussed as the final judgment based on the arbitration. So we are hoping, I am asking, is Nikon going to end up something very similar with AV drilling ending up in arbitration? And God forbid, if they were to win at arbitration, we as the taxpayers might be end up paying Nikon to get out of their financial straits, because as a company, they are owing close to over 250 million US dollars to certain investors and finance companies, whether it is in Trinidad and Tobago or internationally. So there's a whole situation where Nikon is fighting for survival, and their only reason is now to take us to arbitration to see if they can get something out of this government of Trinidad and Tobago. And I ask the listeners out there, Dr. Moya, to stay tuned, because there's a lot more will come out of this whole fiasco with Nikon and this government and the sweetheart deal that was set up by this present government led by Prime Minister Rowley. So that's the issue there at this point in time, Dr. Muller. I want to go to another issue, and I'm calling it connecting the dots. With literally a few weeks before the budget 2024 is presented, there are signs that this government is trying to hide a major gas supply crisis. There are signs that this government is struggling to even find a reliable supply of gas. This morning, we in the opposition want you to connect the dots. Besides Nikon suing the state to return its supply of natural gas, the population must remember that the major shutdown at Point Lisas a few weeks ago due to a gas shortage. Connect the dots, we ask. Up to now, Minister Young and the Prime Minister have not announced the results of the deep water bid from 2022. I ask, connect the dots again. Gas production is at its lowest in 20 years. Yet again, once again, we have failed to meet our annual target production. Connect the dots again. This week, Minister Young, Dr. Moore, visited President Maduro in Venezuela. Right? Yes. Why? And we are asking questions about that visit again. But in July, the Prime Minister told us that drug and gas negotiations are at a stalemate at this time, as both Venezuela and the United States seem to be unwilling to compromise on the terms currently being afforded. What has changed that made Minister Young visit Maduro? Is it due to the U.S. stating that sanctions might be lifted soon? Minister Young has gone to ask Venezuela to accept. We ask if Minister Young has gone to Venezuela to accept the non-cash terms until then, meaning the whole bartering issue of the terms of agreement. Has Minister Young gone to visit Maduro to give our energy companies and downstreamers a false sense of hope that more gas is on its way to curb the shortage? Has Minister Young gone to Venezuela, we ask, so in the budget that is coming, they could mislead the country and chambers that we have a supply of gas that is due? Minister Young has a duty to update this country on what transpired in that meeting and tell the country the status of this drug and gas deal given this week's meeting or last week's meeting. The evidence is clear that the energy companies within our sector are already reducing their activities and investment within our economy, as demonstrated by the Central Bank Economic Bulletin as of July 2023, Dr. Munilal. But before I get into that, it is ironic that Minister Young visited Maduro last week, and in today's newspapers, we are seeing an article, European eyeing the dragon gas.
Oh, not you.
Right? Not me. Right? And there's an article written by, an interesting article, and I asked to connect the dots. You really have to connect the dots, Dr. Munilal. All of a sudden, from what we understand about this dragon gas deal is that even the terms of reference that the U.S. government has given our government in dealing with Maduro is that if you do deal with Maduro and you do get gas using non-cash items, that some of that gas should also go to our CARICOM neighbors, whether it's Jamaica or Dominican Republic. But it's interesting that all of a sudden, out of the clear blue skies, we see that European article written by Rafael John Lal, Europeans interested in the dragon gas deal. Now, nowhere before we have ever heard that Europe was interested in this dragon gas. It has always been between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. And now there's an article that it appears to be a public, in our view, a public relations stunt to try and give some credibility that Europe is also looking at this dragon gas field. So that we ask the question, why all of a sudden Mr. Rafael John Lal, who is the writer of this report, and who is Mr. Francisco Monondelli from Rice University, and what is their relationship with President Maduro? And I ask, what is their relationship with President Maduro that an article like this is now coming out after a visit from Minister Young in Venezuela last week? So we ask you to stay tuned. There's a lot more that it has to be said, and a lot more that is being hidden about this dragon gas deal. So I want to just turn quickly, before I come to a close, Dr. Munilal, and about foreign exchange in our country. And what we have seen lately, based on the Central Bank Economic Bulletin, is that there has been a lack of foreign exchange that has been being sold from our energy companies to our commercial banks, etc., Dr. Munilal. And what does that say? And it's right there that there has been a decrease of 18%. When you look at the Central Bank Economic Bulletin, there has been a decrease of 18%, a downturn of 18%. If I can just get my document. All right. Forex sales. if forex sales by energy companies declined 18% in 2023. So what is it really says that the energy companies are not selling their foreign exchange to the commercial banks. And that is because what is happening really and truly, from what I understand, is that the energy companies are holding back because of lack of they're not putting money into the country because for whatever capital expenditures, they're not putting back, looking for the TT dollars. And that is why when you look at the central bank bulletin, they are stating that our forex sales, which has always been in crisis for a number of years since this government has come into being in 2015, that we cannot get the kind of foreign exchange that we need to run our country. And we'll see a bit more on that at another time, and about the foreign exchange, Dr. Munilal. Now, before I end, I just want to turn to one matter, and it's called about development in San Fernando, Dr. Munilal. I don't know if you're going to touch on that. Huh?
No, please.
All right. So a couple of days ago in the newspapers, there's an article called "The Prime Minister Prays for San Fernando Development." Now, what really is that development? Dr. Mulal knows that development is called a car park. All right. I think it's a five-floor car park to the tune that they built after 8 years. This is what Faris Alwari is saying is development in San Fernando, a multi-story car park that costs the taxpayers of this country over $132.7 million. Let me just repeat that. To build this car park, it costs the taxpayers over $132 million. And in the article, it states that the car park can accommodate 1,000 vehicles. So if you look at the size of a car park, if you go into any mall, the size of a car park, it will literally has costed the taxpayers $132,000 to build one car park. All right? Now, this is the development that Faris Alwari and the Prime Minister is saying is development in San Fernando. And we have Monday, school is starting, and I know Dr. Munal will get in that a bit. You know, there are so many concerns about a lot of schools that would not be restarted on Monday because of lack of funding. And yet this government, after 8 years in government, this government led by Prime Minister Rowley can take $132 million of your taxpayers' money and build a car park in San Fernando. And that is what Faris Alwari is praising Prime Minister Rowley and saying that is development in San Fernando. And Dr. Munial would know, and he might elaborate, that when they were in government, led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar in San Fernando, we built a teaching hospital because we knew that that is what we are about, caring for the people. And that teaching hospital was to generate more students, more medical facilities, etc., learning to, for the benefit of the entire San Fernando and environs the community. And that is what, after 8 years, all this PNM government could do is build a car park in San Fernando for $132 million, and that's what they call development. And that alone, Dr. Munila, the people should vote them out, just based on that alone. So, as I come to an end, I just want to close by saying, we just came out of a local government, and I just want to say that our opposition leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, has just led the UNC to its best local government election results in its party history. Not only has the party won the popular vote and won the most seats in this election, but we have challenged the PNM in their heartland. In Arima, for example, the UNC has made all of those seats marginal. We have gained seats in San Fernando. We have gained a new alderman, Dr. Muninal, in the Samoa Regional Corporation, which we didn't, an extra alderman. Our collaboration with NTA, they gained an alderman in Diego Martin Corporation, never before. So those who are calling on our leader to resign are doing so conveniently, and in my personal view, for personal agendas, and they have no right to do that. So again, Dr. Munilal, we have done well in our local government. We are going into a budget very soon, and I ask the listeners out there to listen to us as we continue along our way to fight for you in and out of Parliament. So with those few words, I turn over to Dr. Munilal.
Thank you very much, the very distinguished Chief Whip, Dr. David Lee, for the comprehensive analysis on matters pertaining to the critical developments in the energy sector, in the gas industry, and indeed in the area of foreign exchange and so on. I got a message from a constituent in Arapuchis during Dr. Lee's discourse, and he said, Dr. Lee explained it well. And I suspect that was during the discussion on Nikon in particular. I got that message. So I think it's very, very clear on that racket that involved Nikon and certain personalities that you are right, that are well known to us for many years. And the UNC in Parliament and outside had already condemned that deal. Because unless I'm mistaken, that love affair, sweetheart arrangement they had with Nikon involved not only giving away the assets at Petrotrin, but some way sharing in later profits and profit sharing where there were none. So today Nikon suing the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and that is a matter that I'm sure that Dr. Lee would continue to speak out on in the coming days. Ladies and gentlemen, to begin where Dr. Lee ended, the United National Congress, of course, has embraced our victory. We have embraced the very good results from the local government election with humility. We are extremely proud of the efforts of the United National Congress led by the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesan. As Dr. Lee said, in that election, there were two battleground corporations really, which everyone agreed would have been Sandy Grande and San Fernando. In both battleground councils, the UNC gained. The UNC made an enormous expansion in Sandy Grande and San Fernando, and they were determined to be the battleground corporations. We made enormous progress and expansion in Tonapuna, in Savo Lavantil, in other areas in the country, so that however you spin those results, the United National Congress won the local government election. Today, the PNM is in the minority in Tobago because they were devastated there. And in Trinidad, they're in the minority. So that the party, the PNM, is the minority party of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think now the population must wake up to this reality that they do not speak. The PNM and Rowley do not speak for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago because they are in a minority on both islands and in the country as a whole. That is a fact. And I just like to remind persons, as Dr. Lee said, who may have another view, that in the last local government election between the United National Congress and our partner, the NTA, we secured 189,000 votes, while the PNM was able to secure 131,000 votes. So you're talking about 131 to 190, about 60,000 more votes in Trinidad. We forget the Trinidad they got. The PNM boasts, of course, that they contest every electoral district. The UNC contested 110 electoral districts, our partner 31. So out of 110 electoral districts, the UNC got 174,000 votes, while the PNM, who boasts about 141 districts, they got what? 131,000. So we beat them even though the UNC contested less, significantly less electoral districts, and our partner contested 31 electoral districts. So as I say, however you spin it, when it falls, the UNC and the NTA won the local government election. And tribute to all our supporters, activists, members, candidates, and of course the national executive led ably by the political leader, Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa, who led the charge in a most unrelenting and forceful manner that delivered that victory. I want to begin the presentation here by speaking. I like to begin by just summing up the week in parenthesis, so to speak. And last week, as the population know by now, the head of government, Keith Rowley, his cabinet ministers, and indeed the heads of law enforcement were very busy last week. They were collecting their suits and their cloaks and their tunics from the laundry and dry cleaners. They were being dragged from venue to venue last week for toasting. They were forcing down tube glasses of champagne, munching down on shrimp and smoked salmon. They were there in their red, white, and black, enjoying all the trappings of office, while the ordinary citizen in this country was exposed to home invasion, murder, robbery, rape. This morning, I can tell you, a few hours ago before this press conference, there was an armed robbery where workers at the Massey store in St. Anne's were tied up and robbed and traumatized. Just this morning, a few hours ago, this happened in the vicinity of the Prime Minister residence and the President residence. I am told that if the Prime Minister opened his window this morning, he could have been called as a witness to the robbery. It was so close. And this is the Prime Minister who this week told us there was light at the end of the tunnel in dealing with crime. Well, it reached about 100 yards or so from his house now, where he's sleeping temporarily. And light at the end of the tunnel, I want to tell Keith Rowley, that light is really of a train coming in our direction. That is the light you are seeing at the end of the tunnel. It is coming in our direction. The Commissioner of Police did not do herself any justice. They did not get any merit in a rather bizarre type of analysis that suggested, in a nutshell, that last year was a record murder rate of 300. I'll say 600, I believe. 600 last year was the record. And she announced with pride and with fanfare that, listen, we are on the same neck and neck with that last year, so we're doing good. It is not more. And I got the figures this week and I told them, last year, 2022, August 31st, had 391 murders, according to the police. 391 according to the police. The Express newspaper published on Friday, which is the day after the 31st, this week here, gone, it was 392 murders. So I want to tell the commissioner this morning, please don't treat the population with contempt and scorn, and understand, and be more sensitive. So if 600 was the record last year, and you equal at 31st of August what it was last year, what you're saying that you'll get the same 600 and you win. They are treating the murder rate as if it's a by-election in Lingua, Indian Walk or somewhere. And you win by one, you lost by one, you tie, and we'll go to court and decide that. Murder is murder, it is blood. And the Prime Minister and the Commissioner of Police, regrettably, did not show the compassion, the care in dealing with this matter this week to announce that things are looking better. Today, the front page of the Sunday Express, get guns under control. Get guns under control. The Doma person, I think he woke up this week or last week to tell us that we are in a state of near crisis. That is the nature of the problem we face. And while this is happening, ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of National Security is not to be seen or heard of. The Minister of National Security in this country has surpassed all failure standards. All standards of failure he has surpassed. He is dangerously incompetent and must be removed forthwith. His very presence poses a danger to this country by his lack of vision, of planning, of policy, of preemptive action on the part of leading the security forces. And it's a major crisis we face. And the citizens, I want to make the point this morning that even a morning like Sunday morning, people go to the supermarket. They go to the market, Tanapuna, San Fernando, Debe, Port of Spain, wherever, Scarborough. They go to the market and they're in a state of fear. Will you get home safely today? Would I get home safe? When you wake up in the morning, the father of a home, the mother, the head of the household, wakes up in the morning saying, thank you, God, that last night there was no home invasion in my house, that my wife was not raped, my daughter was not raped. That is how people get up in the morning, thankful that their house was not invaded. And the Prime Minister says, I'm happy. Crime appears to be we getting it under control. The commissioner, all is well. We are at the same point last year, which was the record-breaking murder year. So all is not well at all. And the problem here is, of course, that the police and the security forces do not have direction. They don't have a leadership of the government of Keith Rowley and Hines, this minority government. Tomorrow as well, I wanted to remind folks, tomorrow, the school term opens, as Dr. Lee alluded to. We are in a state of utter crisis in terms of the school reopening. Yesterday, in a Newsday article, tutors, school boards predict rough start to new term. In a nutshell, over 2 months, what we call the holiday, some people say summer, although we don't have summer and winter, but the holiday, we had 2 months. They have done absolutely nothing. There was no critical repair program for 2 months. It is only last week that somebody reminded the Minister of Education at school opening, they started 1 or 2 minor projects. But no critical repair program for 2 months. No provision of furniture. I want to remind the country, do you know during the COVID period when everybody, children away from school, a lot of the furniture in schools deteriorated, rot away with all the normal wood lice or whatever it is. And they were promised furniture. No furniture was provided, but Dr. Lee told us just now, $162 million for a car park in San Fernando. Do you know the UNC partnership government where UDCOT was under my ministry? We had a budget for that car park of $60 to $80 million. It started, that 8-year car park that they boasted about, started when we were in office. We planned and put a price around 60, 72 million for that car park. Today, we are told that it's $132 million a park car. But they don't have money for furniture for the schools, for the children, to provide, well, air condition probably is a luxury, but many schools are without even units. Today we have a crisis where parents, thousands of parents in this country today, thousands and thousands, cannot afford the school books, school supplies. As members of parliament, myself, Dr. Lee and others, parents come to us, you know what they want? Could you help us to buy some books? Could you help us to buy supplies? And some of us, we put together small little packages for parents because the government has no money to provide, inexpensive amount of supplies to the children. So school books, textbooks at an exorbitant price, parents cannot afford. They cannot afford travel because the price of fuel increased as well. So children, and it is in the newspaper today, where a lot of children are dropping out from school with enormous social implications and so on because they cannot afford travel, they cannot afford school books, supplies. There was a program called the rental program for school books. It's called Textbooks Rental Program. That occurred when we were in office, the partnership. You know that has collapsed now. That's a simple program where the government provides books to the schools, and as children move up and out in some cases, the books come down to a different class. It's called the textbook rental. That is inoperational, it is not working. So children are not getting books even from that. It has been abolished by the PNM. So no furniture, no books, increased price of travel, parents reeling under this pressure. They announced on the 29th of August, I'd like you to know, a program now where incidentally through CAF and UNICEF, look who helping, CAF and UNICEF, you have now e-books. You can go online for mathematics, English, and one other area, and primary school children and so on could go online. They forgot to say, oh shucks, we abolished the laptop program. So they're going online with what? A calculator, a pocket calculator? What you going online with? So you are telling the children the books are available online, not because of this government, CAF and UNICEF, a program with them, but you have no devices for the children. In all our communities, we are begging the private business sector to give children laptops, to provide devices and so on for them. So what is the purpose of e-books if you don't have a device upon which you can access it? So these are some of the problems. And a final problem in the education sector, because tomorrow's school opening. Do you know this government has collapsed the school support services program? That is a program that offers guidance officers and what is called social workers for children who are vulnerable and need that help. There's a system in our schools. When we were there, the partnership government and Dr. Gopi Singh mastermind, I think, that type of programming, Where when you have a child who is vulnerable, there's some problem in the home, child is missing school, child has other problems, you make a referral to the relevant department and they get a guidance counselor or a social worker to intervene immediately to help the child. In some cases, to work with the community police and help the child or parents, as the case may be. That program, they have failed to renew the contracts of workers there. They have failed to renew the contracts. So today, when a school make a referral to help a child, it takes months and months and months before a guidance officer or social worker can get involved. So what is the purpose? You are destroying, this government is destroying the lives of children. But while they're doing that, $132 million for car park, $45 million to build the Prime Minister residence in Tobago so you can enjoy sports and friends and entertain there. So those are the issues relating to that. I wanted to raise a pertinent matter now that has been in the public domain and that I myself raised 2 weeks ago, I think on the 20th of August, I raised the matter. That has to do with this donation and return of firearm by Stuart Young, who is now the Minister of Energy. Stuart Young, we believe, has in his possession several weapons and firearms and so on, all legal. I want to say nothing illegal in that. In fact, I'm told that he could have his own registry for his arsenal of weapons that he may have in his possession. He took a decision some time ago to return one particular weapon, which we found the pictures of what that weapon would look like. And this is it. It's called an SN Springfield St. Edge 556 pistol. SE8 4500 as a number. This is a weapon. This is the weapon. This is the weapon. Right? This is the weapon. Yeah. He had a weapon like this. He returned it or donated it or gifted it to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This. And I'll give you a next picture. A government minister in this country with this. Gifted return to the TTPS. This is the weapon. Now, why would someone who obtained this weapon legally, I think 1 year ago, returned it with a cost we believe to be around 40,000 TT dollars, return it to the TTPS? The only question we ask Mr. Stuart Young is, why did you return it? Guns and weapons that are returned to the TTPS are in certain circumstances, clearly. Someone attained the age of 75 or they're elderly, they can no longer use a firearm, they return. If you are impaired, you develop a physical impairment. Your sight deteriorates, for example. Arthritis take over the hands and so on. You can't use the weapon, you return. And there's a process called, you request from the Commissioner of Police a disposal permit to return that to dispose of the weapon. So is Stuart Young over 75? He's not old, he's young. Is he impaired in any way? Don't ask Arnold Roberts that. But is he impaired in any way? What impairment he has? Is there sight problem? Is there problems with the hand, the trigger finger maybe? Legs have a problem. You can't be agile in the event of a crisis and you have to use this weapon. Why did you apply for it in the first place? And 1 year later, I want to return it to the police. These are the questions. Those are the pertinent questions to be asked. Who did you return it to? And I told the country, I said, if he doesn't want to tell us, we will tell him. Because we do our work. We are asking Stuart Young again. And when the media asked him this, what did he do? Belt out a chups at the reporter for asking him. This is a high public interest matter, where a government minister in possession of something looking like this gives as a gift to the police. There are several implications of this, brothers and sisters of the media. When we were in government, Mrs. Prasad Bisasa and myself, I was leader of government business then, we told cabinet ministers, do not take a gift of even an airline ticket from people. If you are traveling on government business, the government pays. If you are traveling on private business, you pay. No thing, we don't want no gift. You don't give gift to the state that way. You don't. There are serious repercussions of this. Stuart Young, it is well known in the public domain, a relative of his who occupied a household with him at some time, is before the courts on serious criminal charges. So how is it looking now that the police is prosecuting a relative who was in a household with you, and you now give the police a gift? You're giving the police a gift who are prosecuting a relative who shared a household with you. That is wrong. Then there's the issue of the Procurement Act. There's the TTPS is a procurement entity. If they receive a gift, it has to be according to procurement rules and regulations, not just that part of the law that deals with disposal of permit. It has to be now done in the context of procurement. And you cannot give a gift to the state where that gift could be seen as an inducement for something. It could be seen as seeking favor of something. We can't wake up tomorrow morning and we need an electricity connection in the bush because we buy land. And we say, okay, I'll give the and take a gift. I'll give the and take a gift. It doesn't work like that. And when we ask these questions, people are becoming upset. Yeah. But these are serious questions. And this morning, as I promise you, it came out of their mouths, incidentally. Why did Stuart Young give this gift to a unit under special branch and not a police station, or not even walk into the headquarters and say, Mr. Commissioner Jacob or Madam Commissioner Erla, I have this gift for you. Could you please accept it and let's get the paperwork and so on? What is he giving the gift to? Something called the Multi-Optional Police Section, MOPS. A highly trained unit in the special branch. Why did you want to give them a gift as opposed to returning it to the police, the commissioner's office, or a police station designated by the commissioner? One would feel, apart from why you want to return the gun, where did you return it? And this morning I want to ask a particular police officer, and I want to begin by saying, I cast no aspersions on the conduct of any police officer in this matter. Police officers will act according to their level of command and so on. Cast no aspersions. I do not accuse the officer of doing anything wrong, and certainly nothing criminal. But I would like to ask a particular police officer this morning, since Minister Young has refused to answer, the commissioner has taken a public position on this. No comment, no inquiry, no finding, and no accountability. I make the point, Dr. Mego and others here. You cannot ask the population to have confidence in the police if the police is not accountable. It doesn't work no part of the world like that. You want the police to have confidence in the police, they must be accountable. And this morning, I want to identify a particular police officer in this matter. I believe his name is Mr. Edison Metivier. Mr. Edison Metivier, a particular officer in this matter. He's an inspector of police, attached, we believe, to the same MOPS unit. This morning, we would like to ask him if he has any information that he would like to share with us on this matter in particular. Inspector Edison Metivier, regimental number 14550. Regimental number 14550, Inspector Edison Metivier. May I also say in this matter as well, because this could reach court too, that I do have knowledge of this particular officer who has worked with governments before, including the partnership. We have great respect for his professional conduct. I am asking him whether or not this is a picture of Inspector Metivier. I hold it up. So now he knows who he is. This picture is not from the private family album. It is taken from a social media page. So I am not showing a picture that is private. It is not taken from the private family album below the TV, in the living room, in the drawing room. It is taken from a social media platform. So it is not that I'm exposing anyone who was not exposed before. I know where my critics on this matter are going already. This has been taken from a computer thing. Mr. Metivier, I'm asking you, could you give the population details on this matter? On this matter that is in your knowledge. Who collected it? Under what circumstances? What forms were filled out? Were there any alterations to the weapon? And why was more importantly of all, why was the weapon returned? People don't apply for FUL, collect a weapon and return it. In fact, people don't want to return it at all. In fact, when people die, their family just hold on sometimes to their firearm. So this very respected police officer, who we have knowledge of, I would like to ask him, in the interest of disclosure and accountability. And I'd like to tell the folks who are listening here that if you don't account today, you will account one day. A future National Security Council could well take a decision that we need a complete inquiry in this. And they will be within their legal remit to so do. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. Just tell us why it was returned, when, the procedure that was followed. We cast no aspersions on the conduct of Officer Metivier. We cast none. There is also the head of Special Branch, Assistant Commissioner of Police Terence Pierre. We have him picked here too, but it's not necessary. Mr. Pierre, could you also enlighten the national community on what was the circumstances surrounding the return of a weapon to a unit in Special Branch, as opposed to police headquarters, police station, or any other area, assuming those are the circumstances? I stand by what I say. If I am proven wrong, I am the first to apologize. But this is the information that has come to us. And we asked the MOPS, we asked the Special Branch to tell us the procedure. Tell us what was the reason for returning this particular weapon. Tell us whether it was modified or not. And as the head of those organizations, if the Commissioner of Police refuses in the public interest to speak, other officers must also clear the air on the matter. Again, Mr. Pierre, Mr. Metivier, we cast no aspersions. I am 100% sure that they have done nothing to breach the criminal law, and intentionally or not, they have done nothing unethical. But they may have knowledge of this transaction, which we want to get to the bottom of. And I am not being reckless or irresponsible at all. You cannot tell the population to call the police station and give them information on crime, but you have no accountability by the police. You can't do that. In America, in Europe, I had the pleasure of living in Europe for 6 years. People in Europe know the name of the constable, know the name of the sergeant in the office. They know who it is, you know. That's not a secret. In Trinidad, we have this colonial ideology that you can't know, nobody must know who the police is. They're behind a curtain. They could do anything they want, you know. Everybody know what Jerlene John looked like, David Lee, Rudal Munilal. Forget Kamla now. Everybody knows she looked like in the world. But everybody know what we look like, but we can't know what them look like. That's an old British colonial constabulary ideology. And that must stop. People must know what the police officers look like, what they are doing, and they account for their actions. If there's misconduct, we deal with that. We have law for that. And let me tell anybody listening out there, if Gary Griffith broke any law when he was Commissioner of Police, you can take whatever action you want. Go to the police and report that too. But don't use that as some kind of threat that we cannot expose what we believe to be something wrong on the part of Minister Young, not the TTPS, Minister Young. And on that matter, I wanted just to make another point. That another issue facing the police in Trinidad and Tobago is this. The Strategic Services Agency is the local spy agency in Trinidad and Tobago. That is the spy agency. That is composed of contract officers hired effectively by the Minister of National Security and in some cases the Cabinet. They are not police officers. They are spying. They are private citizens, or what we call civilians in the SSA. Do you know today the SSA is spying on senior police officers, bugging their phone, listening to their conversation, looking at the map of their calls? Senior police officers in Trinidad and Tobago are being spied upon by the spy agency of civilians. There are serious implications for that, apart from breaking the law. Senior police are sometimes in touch with what is called confidential informants. They are working on crime, solving murder, gang violence, and so on. They will have persons who are confidential, giving them intel, giving them intelligence. Today, senior police officers are telling in certain quarters that they cannot speak to the confidential informants because the SSA is tapping their phone. That has serious repercussions to the conduct of police work. And today I call upon the minister, well, he's sleeping away. Who could I call upon now? I call upon the Commissioner of Police, really, to tell us whether or not senior police officers are themselves being spied upon by the spy agency, the SSS, which has been appointed, all of them appointed by the cabinet and the government and the Minister of National Security. And why are they spying on police officers? That is a crisis. You want to solve crime, but you're taking senior officers and spying on them? So that is a matter I would just leave there because I don't wish to go there. My final issue I would raise is this bothering issue of Caribbean Airlines. I think Caribbean Airlines has been in the news, and let me say, and I'm just seeing an article here I had to make reference to, Gatsby Dolly, school repairs to be completed on evenings and weekends. Now this is laughable. So what happened when the child leaves the classroom, a construction team comes in to work, and the next morning the child comes in to breathe sawdust, dust, and it becomes a health and safety issue?
On that same issue.
Yeah, of course. Look at the tutor is saying, according to an article we just received from Dr. Lee here, that they wanted assurances from contractors that there would be no safety and health concerns for staff and students. So imagine your child leaves 2:30 the school, a contractor come in 3 o'clock to work, what, till 6 o'clock, because they're working in the dark. And it's much more expensive to pay workers to work in the evening and weekend. Huh? And the next morning your child goes in smelling glue, breathing sawdust, or some other industrial equipment and so on you use, and they breathe. This is a health and safety disaster. And for 2 months you waste time, you sat on your hands and did not fix the schools. You want to bring a contractor in overnight and weekend to do that work now? This is a disaster. But on the Caribbean Airlines matter, I wanted to indicate that the Caribbean Airlines matter was raised by the UNC in Parliament on several occasions, several. There are matters that involve collective bargaining. For years, 8 years now they do it, they're trying to work out an arrangement. They are taking punitive action against pilots and staff in this matter. Yesterday, it came to light yesterday that a Caribbean Airlines flight, I think BW 465, leaving Chedijagan International Airport for Piaco yesterday, took off. 10 minutes later, they had to return and land because the air condition wasn't working on the aircraft. That is a result of the mismanagement of the PNM. And that has serious repercussions. A plane is not where you put a portable fan in a corner and blow breeze on people. The air condition system is linked to other types of sophisticated technology and systems on an aircraft to deal with pressure, to deal with sophisticated equipment dealing with your safety on an aircraft. Yesterday, 10 minutes into a flight, they had to turn around because the air condition was faulty. Caribbean Airlines need a complete and independent inquiry into the conduct of their management and finances from 2015 to today. Because what happened if they were flying to Toronto and they were flying to some far distance and over the Atlantic Ocean, over the Caribbean Sea to a point where it's hard to turn and find another landing field? What would have happened? So that is the state of Caribbean Airlines. I want to draw to your attention. I'll speak more to that in a few minutes. In fact, the entire holiday period when Caribbean Airlines should have been in a flight of fantasy really in terms of revenue making and so on, they collapsed. And we had this disaster where the government say $17 million they had to fine because they mismanaged employer-employee relationship, collective bargaining issues, which we were telling them for years. Everybody know there was fatigue, there was overwork, there's triple shift by workers, there was an outstanding matter of collective bargaining. They reduced the number of pilots, they fire and then hire back the same people. And while I am on transport, I want to end now by speaking. Tomorrow, they are boasting, this government, that they're going down to the mosquito crack, down that side. And you know, I just want to remind the population, we brought to the attention of this population in January or thereabout 2022, right over here now, this is the state of the highway to Point 14. Look at this, look at this. We getting a good picture, Michael? Good. Look at this. This is called the Mosquito Crack. They paved a part of the highway in the vicinity of the Mosquito Creek, and it mashed up in record time. We are told that it took $80 million more. $80 million more to do partial repair because it is not repaired yet. and $80 million gone. When we asked the minister what happened, he says land instability. I asked him how long he know it was instability. Since Christopher Columbus come here, we know the land. So what you talking about, your land instability? Today, the Minister of Works will not account. There is no report for over a year on what caused this. Who is held accountable? There's a consultant by the name of AECOM, AECOM. They are the consultants on this project. Today I call out AECOM. Tell us, what is your report? Who is responsible? Who caused this? How much money? Who's paying for that? We are told is now in excess of $80 million for this. And they're boasting that they're opening the highway tomorrow to Point Fortin. What they're not telling you is they're not opening any highway. They're opening a segment. But here the joke, it is not the two sides of the segment, it's one side of one segment. So what they're saying is that they're really opening a road, a two-way road, for a part of the area beyond the mosquito crack. That's what they're opening tomorrow. And boasting, that they 8 years now they cannot finish a highway, but $132 million for car park, $45 million for Prime Minister house, $225 million for Massey Communications. Call it, we could call all day. The wanton waste of money. But they cannot complete the Point Fortin highway. Tomorrow you're boasting you're opening a few hundred yards of highway, and it's not two-way, it's one lane or something. And you watch it, they are so blight that will close down in 1 week. The Red House, they boast, reduce the price, the partnership was going to pay too much money. Do you know the House of Representatives is out of our chamber since December last year and we can't reach back yet? Because of the roof leaking. It fall on, I think, Rodney Charles' head, I believe. Some water or something. Close in the vicinity of MP Charles. Yes, the Red House. It's some other area I forgot. I'm forgetting now that they open and had to close down quick because of this problem of bad workmanship and so on. All over we are picking up this. So the Mosquito Creek, there are no answers yet on that matter. I said it was like Crick's biscuit on the road. There is Bill Road that has ended up like Crick's. You ever see a one biscuit break on your plate? How it looked? That's how the road does look. And they're boasting tomorrow, but that is a farce. It is just to tell the population that they may be doing something. But there is no highway from San Fernando to Point Fortin. A highway means a highway. 4 lanes, 2 lanes on each side, and you're going. So this highway was conceptualized by the partnership. This highway is a partnership project. Eric Williams promised a highway to Point Fortin. Kamla Prasad Bisesa began that highway. And we opened, don't forget, from Taruba straight down to Debe. And then another section in the vicinity, I believe, of Avocat somewhere down there. We opened that. We were well on the way to opening that entire highway by 2017. That is one of the proudest project of the partnership administration led by Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. I mean, I don't want to tell you about the Mayaro fire station that we built as well. We built that. But the Point Fortin highway is a project of the partnership. It is a project of Kamla Prasad Bisesa that they cannot finish 8 years after because of their incompetence and corruption. So it will be left to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa again. Take my word. It will be left to her and the UNC to complete the Point Fortin highway so that people can sit between San Fernando and Point Fortin and take one highway and go. So I alert you to that. In closing, of course, again, we have much more issues that we can raise, but of course time is of the essence as well. Sunday morning. I want to thank you for your attention. Again, we are in a deep crisis in this country. You will see it unraveling, but fortunately we must always look on the hopeful side. The United National Congress has won convincingly the local government election. We now in a position where we can say of the two major parties in this country, the United National Congress is the majority party of the people of Trinidad. In Tobago, they have been thrown out already. So the Rowley is by himself, representing himself and misrepresenting and misdirecting himself. I suspect he will travel much more to safe countries so that he may enjoy his golf and enjoy his vacation and so on. In the coming days, we have to fend for ourselves, and we will be outlining on the public platform our policies as it relates to crime, social policy, education, health, energy, and those matters in the coming days. I ask you to stay tuned. So thank you all very much. And I believe we shall
don't know if
take
you
some
have
questions.
Any questions at this point in time?
Yes, we have some questions from the media here. The first one is for Dr. Lee. Given the delay in the report of the Commission of Inquiry, is the opposition stating that Chairman Lynch specifically state what or which parties are causing this delay? So
Well,
I think it's,
just to respond to that question from the media, the families, we're looking for some sort of answers, and we are hoping that his video conference that King's Counsel Lynch will be having on Wednesday, he can enlighten the population, especially families of the divers, of why there's a further delay that he requires, and really state if there are any state entities that are really stymieing the process of him completing his report. Because when you go back to Mr. Lynch back in January, when he emphatically stated he wanted to bring closure and answers for the families and the country on this report, and he had said Easter would be laid, and then he shifted to August, and now he's saying he needs more time to shift it to November. And we are saying that, you know, enough is enough, and if the government is delaying the process through state organizations, let us know so that the population is aware what are the issues.
Okay, thanks. This one is for Dr. Munila.
Sure.
And that is, can the opposition force the minister or the commissioner of police to be accountable or to answer the outstanding questions regarding the gifting of Stuart Young's weapon?
Well, what I can say in response to that is that the Commissioner of Police is accountable to the law, and there are several instruments available to the public under legislation incidentally passed by the UNC, including judicial review, freedom of information, and so on. And we have given the Commissioner of Police, we have given Mr. Metivier, we have given Mr. Pierre, we have given them sufficient notice, sufficient time in the public domain to answer questions. And yes, we are in consultation with the lawyers, and we may look at going to the court to compelling the Commissioner of Police to respond to some of these critical issues in the public domain. Because you can't say you're dealing with guns and firearms and that type of thing. If a minister himself has a question, something suspicious about a return of a highly powered, deadly, murderous weapon, as I demonstrated.
Another one for Dr. Lee here. Can the opposition say that the Minister of Energy has a duty to ensure that Nikon presents the findings of its report into both explosions to ensure the safety of workers and the community?
The reports of the two disasters that happened at Nikon, one in April 2021 and the recent one in June with the death of Mr. Ramkisoon, we have been calling on those reports to be laid in Parliament or being presented to the GSC of Energy to be fleshed out, to understand that if Nikon, then really to understand what were the issues that caused the blast, and if Nikon is really have corrected those measures for the safety of the country and also for the safety of my constituents, especially in the Marabella area and Batu Avenue. So that we have been calling on that, and we are hoping once again that before Nikon becomes fully operational, if that happens, if they get a supply of gas, which is very scarce, that these reports are laid in Parliament so we can have an understanding of what took place.
Okay, one more for Dr. Munila. Has the opposition requested that the report on the collapse of the Mosquito Creek be laid in the Parliament?
Yes, on several occasions at the Parliament, we have asked the Minister not only to give verbal responses on this matter, but to produce the report. He has always indicated that, first he said there was no report, then he said there was a report, but for legal reasons and so on, they can't release the findings of the report. Now, this is another point I want to make. This government hides behind this issue of legality. You're seeing it in the Paria matter, you're seeing it in the Nikon matter, you're seeing it in the mosquito crack matter, you're seeing it in several matters. What they do, they take the report, they make it secret, and then they say, listen, that report may prejudice some discussion and negotiation and so on. So nobody could know. So their mode, their default mode is non-disclosure, non-accountability. That's their default mode. So every crisis we face, we can't get the report. Now, they couldn't give us the report on the, there's a famous one, arbitration with the OS. We got the copy of the report and brought it to Parliament. It didn't prejudice any problem, you know. There was no court issue. I had that report, raised it in the Parliament, spoke on it. You know, that led to no prejudice at court. Nobody never raised anything. But when you ask about the mosquito crack, you ask about Nikon, you ask about anywhere else, that's a serious matter. Today, you're reminding me, I want to ask now for a complete report and inquiry into this crisis that is developing in the Attorney General's office. Now, the Attorney General has gone the same place Heinz has gone. I believe there's some underground dwelling or something they have, you know, that they dwell underground. The Attorney General can't be seen. We are now being told that in June, there was some crisis with their IT system and they had a cyber attack of some kind. Today, lawyers at the DPP office are saying that they cannot be engaged in virtual hearings because they are now meeting and treating with that problem of an attack on their software, on their systems at the Office of the Attorney General and the DPP. Now, that has serious and terrifying and frightening implications. What happens when files involving criminal prosecution, those files are tampered with, interfered, deleted, amended, because of this attack on your system? So we call today for a full statement, an inquiry into the collapse of the Office of the Attorney General as it relates to their computer systems. I mean, I won't even call for the Ministry of Digital, Transformation. We don't even know who the minister there is. I think for a long time they had no web page even. So that the point I'm making is that we need clarity, we need transparency and accountability, because it is a seriously grave and distressing problem when the office of the DPP can tell you they cannot participate in criminal prosecution virtually because of a suspect system, because of some problem with their software.
The last question I have here is that for Dr. Lee. Reports have indicated that the Trinidad Upstream Downstream Company is owing the NGC for gas provided. Is the opposition concerned that there might be some unethical action, as gas for Nikon was not supposed to come from the NGC, but from the minister's share?
Well, and that's a good question posed there, because this government keeps changing their story when they are found out and they are caught wanting. Originally, they had said that the gas that will go to Nikon for operations will come from the minister's share. We are now seeing it being revealed that the gas is coming from NGC supply, which normally would go to the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. So whatever gas has gone to Nikon has come from NGC's share, which would have gone to the producers on the Point Lisas Estate. So they have been suffering, the companies on the Point Lisas Estate. You now see that the upstream, downstream is owing NGC millions of dollars on behalf, technically, of Nikon. Nikon is owing the upstream, downstream over $21 million US. And the hypocrisy of it is that Nikon has now put their friends, the government, in court to try and arbitrate to get gas. And that arbitration, we need to stay, Dr. Moya, we need to look at that arbitration, because I really hope and I do not want it to end up what happened with the AV drilling matter when it went to arbitration. So I ask the population and the media to pay close attention to this arbitration aspect when Nikon, with this Nikon matter that is being in the courts.
Thanks, that's it.
Thank you. So I just want to thank everyone here this morning. Dr. Munir, it's a pleasure being with you on this press conference. And just to inform the viewers out there that they will be returning very soon to our Monday night meetings throughout the country. And we are just putting our some matters coming out of the local government election. We want to also congratulate all those newly installed chairmen and vice chairmen and mayors and deputy mayors and all our councillors and all the men who were recently installed. We wish them all the best going forward. for the next 4 years and serve our great party proud in how they operate in the different corporations that they represent. So again, thank you, and stay tuned to our Monday night meetings.